Hello and welcome to DIY Therapy. As always, we'll start with a disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. My name is Will, and with me as always is Carl.
Or Andy.
Or, yeah, probably more Andy.
So the backstory to this is my son is 3 years old, and I don't know, how would you describe my son?
He's just a 3-year-old, but he's crazy.
He's
crazier than a normal 3-year-old, I would say, but
the things that come out of his mouth are just ridiculous. And it was last week he just started to decide to call everybody Carl. I mean, it's like, hey dad, what are you doing? No, that's not hey dad. It's hey Carl. What are you doing, Sam? Why are you calling me Carl? But Carl. So everything's Carl. My name's Carl. My wife's name is Carl. Everybody's Carl.
I mean, at least he's not distinguishing. Everybody's on equal footing.
just odd. Just very odd.
I love it.
Yeah, he's a goof. He's a good kid, but he's so weird.
Should we talk about tendonitis today?
Is that the topic we chose?
I think so.
Okay. All right. What do you got?
I mean, I got jumper's knee.
You got jumper's knee?
A little bit, yeah.
Wait. We should probably inform the audience that you are a broken man.
I am a physically broken man.
Yeah. Will's just been diagnosed at the age of 40 with severe arthritic changes in his head.
I just can't move all of the way.
Very limited motion. He's struggling, folks. He's struggling.
I will make it.
Yeah. So we're talking about tendonitis today. And so tendonitis, for those that don't know, the muscle essentially attaches to any bone through the tendon. At some point, the muscle fibers start to kind of merge into this less elastic type tissue, and that's the tendon, and then that attaches to the bone. So tendonitis, by definition, is an inflammatory response of that tendon. There's different types of tendonitis. We're not going to go into the detail of that, like tendinosis. I didn't even say that right.
You got me saying it wrong too.
Yeah. There's different types. Really, they're all kind of essentially treated the same way. But, really, tendonitis is typically something that occurs with individuals, usually over the age of 30, 40, and above, really due to overstress, overworking, specifically overstressing or overworking different structures that probably are a little bit deconditioned or doing more than what their normal tolerance is. So, a good example would be like if Will is outside and he is starting to...
Wait, is this because I'm old?
Yes, it's because you're old.
Damn it.
But if Will's outside and he starts raking leaves, and he's doing this because you have a lot of...
I have a lot of leaves.
Yeah, so if he's raking leaves for 3 days, 3 hours, 4 hours at a time, all of a sudden he could start to develop some tendonitis in that shoulder just because he's not used to doing those types of activities. So it could be because you're introducing a kind of overload to the system too quickly for something that typically you don't tolerate or don't do, or it could be that there's just a slow, drawn out cumulative effect that kind of takes place from doing the same repetitive things over and over again. Even though you do them every day, there's just this overload and a cumulative effect that starts to occur within the tissue.
Yeah, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's like I was doing this for years and years, and it never caused me any problem. But just over time, it's just progressively picking away at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the reasons why, as we get older, it seems to be more problematic is because we just muscles in general and tendons in general actually start to lose elasticity as we age. So when we're using those muscles, there's going to be more forces and more strain being placed through the tendons because of the fact that the muscles and tendons aren't as elastic. So because they don't stretch as much, there's more strain placed through them, and that's why it can start to occur over a period of time. I don't know, what are some common symptoms for tendonitis?
Pain, probably more specifically at the joint where it attaches, because that's obviously where muscles attach is at joints, because that's where you have to move. Kind of be a little bit of swelling. It might be hard to notice the swelling depending on where it is. That's a pain mostly with movement, obviously. Yeah.
So like let's say like everybody's heard of tennis elbow. That's technically the big term for that is lateral epicondylitis, which is basically there's a group of muscles that come together and attach basically at the elbow. Okay, and so that muscle group, what it does is it actually extends the hand upward or the wrist upward, and so if you're doing that movement and it hurts with that movement, that typically is indicative that there is some type of tendonitis. And conversely to that, if you actually put that tissue on a big stretch, a lot of times that'll be aggravating too. So usually it's pain with movement. There could be, as Will mentioned, some localized swelling. It may also not have any swelling at all, but just pain. It could be pain after doing exercise or activity also that kind of lingers. That's typically what we'll see.
Sometimes stiffness, I would think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Stiffness. I think sometimes, the diagnostic test that you would look to, like, okay, how do we differentiate whether this is a serious pathology or whether this is more just a tendonitis type issue? You can do like a diagnostic ultrasound. There's MRIs that you can do. Technically, CT scans can do it too, but it's not quite as good at looking at soft tissue. So there's different ways that you can kind of differentiate that. Typically, if something is becoming painful for a long period of time, that's when you probably want to start looking to maybe get it checked out from your physician. But I don't know, common places that we see, tendinitis and issues, really elbows, shoulders, hips, knees, Achilles tendon. We see a lot of Achilles tendon, which can also kind of mimic plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
So a lot of those areas can become tender. And as I said, if you're starting to do some of these treatment strategies we're going to talk about in a bit, and you're not having some pain relief, it may be time that you go get a second opinion from the doctor, or a first opinion from the doctor for that matter,
or fourth opinion.
Yeah, there you go.
Why limit yourself to opinions?
Just keep going.
Everyone's got opinions,
right? Yeah. So I think a couple things we need to think about too is, how can we avoid tendinitis? So do you have any tips to avoid like development of tendinitis?
Trying to change your movement patterns. It depends on what you're doing. If you were like a construction worker where you're going to be doing the same thing repetitively, you need to try to just change your movement patterns even just a little bit, just to try to avoid that. If you are like a weekend warrior athlete, you're a runner or whatever, just some cross training and doing some, other things just to kind of ward off that and strengthen other areas to kind of help stabilize everything.
Yeah. And I would suggest too that, you kind of touched upon different activities that you would do more on a regular basis, and you've kind of built up this cumulative effect. It's all about kind of changing those patterns a little bit. Like if you're a Walmart shelf stocker, lift with your right hand, then lift with your left hand, or use a stool to stand up so that you're not reaching way above your head, so that you're agitating different structures in the shoulder. So kind of changing up those patterns, especially when you first start to feel any kind of pain. If you know you're going to be doing something that's kind of out of the ordinary, try to limit the amount of time that you're spending. Okay. So like, again, the example of Will raking leaves, instead of doing it, over the course of the weekend and spending 6 to 7 hours each day raking leaves and doing this yard work, maybe you break it up to where you're doing it 1 hour a day, giving yourself ample amount of time of rest in between, maybe even icing different areas that are a little bit sore. That way you can kind of break that up and you don't overload the tissue. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Icing is never a bad thing. If you feel any sort of soreness coming on, ice is never a bad idea.
Yeah. So I think that leads us really into kind of, okay, let's say that we haven't avoided any type of, we actually have tendonitis, we were unable to avoid it. Okay, what do we start to do when we, what are some treatment strategies right away to try to get the
arthritis
under control? You're going to be our case study, buddy.
I am.
Yeah, the 40-year-old with severe hip arthritis. So some strategies to initially start to treat some of that pain.
Rest.
What do you think?
Try to avoid the movement. Obviously, we just talked about that. Ice. Those are the big ones.
Yeah. Really, rest, right? The whole RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation. I don't know how much elevation.
I don't know how much compression would work either.
Yeah. But, those are obviously some of the quick things that you can try to do. It's really looking at the activity again. And, and this is, again, a strategy that we've talked about in many different problems is, really trying to modify or avoid whatever that activity is that's driving the symptoms,
Which weirdly should be easy with tendonitis. It should be fairly obvious what the movements are that are bugging you, and the tricky part is avoiding all of those depending on where the tendonitis is.
Yeah. So like most of our problems, what we try to do is we try to restore normal movement patterns within the joint, whether it's muscle contractions or just a normal joint motion. So you can do this through some gentle passive stretching. You can do it through some isometric exercises through that, to where you can kind of contract that muscle below the pain threshold, so that you're not creating that pain input to the brain, so that the tissue can kind of calm down a bit. Other things you can try to do is, certainly there are NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, such as, ibuprofen, Advil. Those are both the same. Then there's acetaminophen like Tylenol. So you could look at that for pain management. Ultimately, you could be looking at, if it's a really bad type of tendonitis that doesn't continue to go away, you could be looking at potentially like an injection. Most likely they'd try some type of anti-inflammatory like a meloxicam or something like that prior to that, which would be more like a prescription drugs versus the over-the-counter NSAID that we just discussed. But those are really the ways that you want to try to, introduce or manage those symptoms, and then slowly build up your activity again. It's all about trying to do what we call graded exposure, create a little bit of an exposure to different motions, different muscle contractions that typically agitate it, and then slowly let the body tolerate that, and then kind of systematically build up the amount of intensity that you're exposing that tissue to, let the body tolerate it again, and then build up again, that intensity level. So kind of slowly kind of building up what you can tolerate, so that you're not creating any of those pain instances.
Yeah, you gotta wade into the ocean.
Wade into the ocean.
Wade.
I don't think I've heard you say that before.
Nah, it's a new one.
See, you know how I get in the ocean? I sprint as fast as I can. It could be, the temp could be 65 degrees. I'm going in, man.
In the ocean?
Oh, sprinting, yeah. Sprinting until the water catches me and I trip. That way it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, getting in there nice and cold.
No. No, I hate that. Just wade in and just slowly get used to it.
No. Oh, terrible.
You're wrong. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. You're wrong, but everyone's entitled.
Buddy, you beat me to the "you're wrong" comment, because I was going to just throw that at you. I don't know. Anything else about tendonitis, man? I mean,
no, it's hard to get rid of, just because it's pervasive in almost all movements of wherever you have it. It's just you have to do what you can with rest and make sure you're icing as much as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, hard to get rid of, because most of the time it's people have tendonitis typically more because of the cumulative effect. We talked about those two different ways that people will develop it. Either they're really introducing something that they're not typically used to doing, and they irritate the tendon. That's not usually the way that it comes on. Usually it's more due to those repetitive type of stressors that accumulate over time. And so the challenge with it is those are usually in your habitual pattern. So, can you get away from those things? Can you modify your activity to where you can give that tissue enough of a break? So it can be a pain in the rear. It can be something that you're trying to manage for a bit and then, really feel like you're not even making much progress. And all of a sudden you look back and you go, oh gosh, I haven't had pain in 3 or 4 days. So that's something that's fairly common too.
Yeah.
So.
Other than that, tendonitis is both easy and tricky. But other than that.
Yeah, not a complicated diagnosis, but something that can be frustrating, I think, is probably more.
Yeah, it's more frustrating than anything. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, shoot us any comments or questions that you might have. What's our email there, Will?
It is DIYtherapy206@gmail.com. The 206 is the number of bones you have in your human body.
I don't believe it.
I've counted.
You have?
Yeah, I mean, I probably have fewer. I'm not sure if arthritis makes you have fewer bones or not. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe.
I'm pretty sure you just lost all credibility with this one.
Well, I'm pretty sure that my hip. I don't know. I feel like my femur is slowly fusing into my pelvis. I can't tell. It feels that way though. just from the lack of motion.
Yeah. All right. You want to close this up here, buddy, or you got anything else you want to say?
No, that's all I got.
All right.
This podcast was for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. Remember, treat yourself.